Hello YouTube, this is Wheatking and thanks for watching my first tutorial in After Effects. Today we're going to look at how to make the bullet time effect that you see here. This video was for the Corridor Digital video submission contest, and I tried to make a bullet time sequence that simulates movies like The Matrix. Today we're not going to be able to cover every single effect seen in this video. We're just going to look at the bullet time displacement that you see here. So I've attempted bullet time in previous videos before, so you can see all of these videos on YouTube if you click on the respective links. The first one here was bullet time in 10 seconds. I just had a short clip of me dodging bullets. The second video that I made was called an action sequence, and this involved basically the conclusion was a bullet time sequence. The third video that I made was called Trigger, and this one also had a bullet time sequence in the finale. And finally, bullet time in 20 seconds was the Corridor Digital video that I made for submission. So now we're going to look at how to make the bullet time sequence all in After Effects. So first we need to start by tracking the footage in 3D. By doing so, the camera in After Effects knows exactly where each element in the footage is. You can use Buju or Synthesize or any other 3D program to track your footage. I prefer to use Synthesize because that's what I've been using for quite a while now. I'm going to show you a brief tutorial on how to use Synthesize. So we're going to import our footage and make sure all the settings here are okay. It's at 24p and aspect ratio is 1, and it's including all of the frames. I'm going to hit OK, and here you see it's importing the footage, and you can see we can scroll through the timeline. And Synthesize is really easy because you can just hit this big green auto button and it's going to start automatically tracking all the points in the footage. Now, given that there's not too much motion by the camera shake or too many moving objects inside the footage, Synthesize does a really good job of just being able to track all the points for you automatically. So I'm going to fast forward to the end of this tracking. It takes a couple of minutes usually. Humbuggledinger. Alright, so it looks like the program has done tracking. It took about 18 seconds to finish calculating all the points and making all the 3D calculations. So let's take a look. You can see on the bottom right here that all the points are now very well tracked with the video, and if I scrub through, you can see all the points are nicely lined up. We can go ahead and export this to After Effects, but what I like to do first is to define a set of axes for After Effects later, because right now the program doesn't know where the ground is or where the vertical direction is. So what I can do is I can click on this XYZ button, and I can click on this star 3 to define 3 points for my axes. So I'm going to hit this button here, and I'm going to set first the x-axis, which I will set as going from this point to this point will be the x-axis. And then to set the z-axis, I find a point that's perpendicular to the x-axis on the ground somewhere. So somewhere right here, this point is probably good. So I will say yes to apply the coordinate system. It'll take a few seconds to apply this, and now if I zoom out here on the 3 plots, you can see that the camera is nicely lined up with the shot. And if you see the top view here, first the camera is facing front, and as I move the camera and rotate, you can see the camera motion is replicated exactly by the virtual camera here. And that's great. So now when we export to After Effects, the program will exactly know which way is X, Y, and Z. So we can go ahead and go to File, Export, After Effects via .ma, and then we can go ahead and call this to save. All this is good, and press OK. And now it's done saving. Now we can move into After Effects. So here we are in After Effects. I can go ahead and import the tracker that I just saved, which I put in Plate and Tracker here. Import that, and also import my plate footage, which is Plate. And so now if I double click on the composition, and I drag my plate footage into the composition, you can see that the tracker squares perfectly line up with every element in the footage, which is great. So now we can do a lot more fun stuff. Say we can put in the clip of Sam shooting from Corridor Digital. Here we have Sam here shooting. If we import him into the composition, if we put him on top, and we can make him a 3D object, and he will automatically fit into the plate. But first, what we're going to do is change the anchor point so that the anchor point is here, so that it lines up roughly with the middle bottom of his feet. And now we're going to turn him into a 3D object by hitting toggle and hitting this button here. And so he disappears because the camera is not necessarily facing where he is right now. So what we need to do is position him somewhere in this blank area right here. And now we have all these trackers here. You can see there are over 100 trackers here. So what we need to do is find the tracker that most corresponds to this area right here. So maybe this tracker right here or something. So we can go ahead and just figure out which tracker that is. I'm going to just go ahead and select this one. Okay, perfect. So this one is the tracker that corresponds to here. So I'm going to use the position of this tracker, and I'm also going to hide all the other trackers so that it doesn't mess up the scene and distract us. So I'm basically hiding it and also making it invisible. Okay, so I use the position of this tracker right here, and I just type it in here, 1.9, 0.1, 114.0. And now you can sort of see Sam's feet here. He's actually way too big right now, so we need to scale him down to, say, 3%. Okay, great. Footage here is about the right scale because the height is roughly the same as it would be a real person inside this footage. So now we can also move him to roughly the center of the parking lot by moving him in the X, Y, and Z direction. And then we can also rotate him so that he faces the camera, because the footage was shot where he was facing the camera. We don't want to rotate it too far out, because essentially what this is, it's like a poster cutout, but it's a video. So if we line it up so that it's directly facing the camera, this will sort of hide the effect, the 2D effect, and sell the overall video. So this is basically how we get 2D footage, such as this green screen keyed footage, onto a 3D space. And so you can see that he's nicely tracked in there. Okay, so now we move on to the meat of the tutorial, which is the bullet time effect. So first, what we're going to do is make a new solid, and I'm going to call it bullet time effect, and I'll make it blue. Okay, make it comp size. All right, I'm going to do a particular, search for particular, and apply it to the effect. Now first, you don't see anything, but I'm going to turn off all the layers and also turn off the camera. And so basically this is the default particular generator. We're going to make some few changes to the emitter and particle. Now I've made a preset called particular bullet time for when I use it, so I can just click on it and work with that right off the bat. But we're going to make our preset essentially right now. So we're going to hit emitter. We're going to change the direction to directional, and turn down the velocity, and also velocity random, even though it doesn't matter. And then we're going to go to particle, and then we're going to change the size to, let's say, 7 for now, so we can sort of more clearly see the particle. Okay, and then the rest of the settings we'll tweak later. So basically what this does is it generates particles at the emitter position, X, Y, and Z. And what we want to do is we want to set keyframes to move the emitter position from one point to another. This way it'll look like the particles are being generated in sort of a stream. So what we can do is set one keyframe here, move a couple of seconds down, and then set the keyframe over here. I did not set the keyframe. Set the keyframes, move a couple seconds down, and set another keyframe. And what this does is basically looks like already the beginning of a bullet time sequence. Okay, so what we're going to do to enhance this effect is first turn up the particle life so that it's at least the length of your footage, so it doesn't disappear over time. And then we're going to change the size random a little bit like this, and maybe the size back down to like 4. And now we can see that sort of like random fluctuations in the air when a bullet slices through in bullet time. So this is the effect I've used for both my quarter digital submission and also for the short film called Trigger. This is sort of a random fluctuation in the air effect. I can turn on the particles per second to show basically how the randomization effect works. Maybe 30 is good. 30, yeah, okay. For the first 2 bullet time videos that I made, bullet time in 10 seconds, and also for an action sequence, I did not use a random fluctuation sort of thing. I used a more ordered sort of sine wave oscillation in the bullet time, because in the Matrix they use a sort of a oscillation in their bullet time as well. So to do that, I first need to turn down the size random to 0, so it's all the same size, and then in the size I'm going to first turn it up to 5. In the size, I'm going to alt click on the stopwatch. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to write an expression that uses the sine function so that we can use the oscillations that are built into the sine function. So if we type in math.sine parentheses time, this will allow the particle to change size over time and oscillate through with the sine function. Now, since sine oscillates from +1 to